Welcome back to the Elite Performance Podcast. This is episode 10, and today our guest is Jeremy Frisch. Jeremy is the owner of Achieve Performance in Clinton, Massachusetts. Achieve Performance is a sports performance facility that caters training towards youth, middle school, high school, and college athletes, as well as adult populations. Jeremy has a wonderful youth program called Speed Demons, in which he works with young athletes in developing many of the skills and understandings of long-term athletic development. So Jeremy talks about what he thinks about and his philosophies when it comes to training youth athletes and how he structures his programming and training for these youngsters. We also talk about some of the challenges and pros and cons of owning a gym or a small business and what young coaches or young professionals should know before getting into this field. Finally, Jeremy and I talk about Division III athletics. Jeremy and I are both former Division III athletes, so we talked about some of the misunderstandings and misconceptions that go along with Division III sports and kind of our love and passion for that level of athletics. Overall, it was a great talk with Jeremy. He shared a lot of great information. He has a really great philosophy and mindset when it comes to training athletes and developing long-term athletic development for young athletes and slow cooking them and getting them prepared for the lifetime of fitness and strength and conditioning. As always, please, if you liked what you heard today, give us a follow on Twitter or Instagram and give a shout out to Jeremy for sharing all of his great work today. So without further ado, let's go talk to Jeremy. This is Jeremy Frisch. Jeremy, how you doing today?
Doing great.
Go ahead, Jeremy. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing today.
My background is I grew up playing lots of sports. Like I think a lot of guys in this in strength and conditioning. Most of football, basketball, baseball growing up. That was pretty much what I did. Tried some other sports as well, but football was probably my main sport. And I got to go, high school. That's I got to play a little bit of college football as well. So that's how I got into the industry is probably training for football, track and field, things like that. Being able to be in shape, stronger, faster, all those things that we do. Yes.
Now, you're the owner of Achieve Performance. Talk to us about some of the programs and things you do at Achieve Performance.
Yeah. So my facility, we kind of have a little bit of everything. So I have children that come in as young as, my son, I could say my son comes down, he's 3, but, probably 5 years old, and then we go up through the middle school ages, right through high school into college. And we also have an adult program. They come in early in the morning or at night after work and do, circuit training, things like that as well. So we kind of have a little bit of everything. I have a lot of young kids, as you probably see on our videos, things like that. So our program called Speed Demons, that's kind of our, biggest program we have down there. And we have kids from, like I said, 3, 4, all the way up until 5th grade. After that, training gets a little bit more organized. It's more typical strength and conditioning, speed and agility type stuff. It's, we're actually training the kids rather than, where I think the Speed Demons is more kind of like physical education.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, there's a kind of a cutoff, when a kid gets to a certain age, around 5th grade, 6th grade, then they start to move on to another program. And like I said, it's a little bit more organized, things like that. And then after that, obviously we got high school, and then any kids in college come home, summer break, those type of programs.
Yeah. You have a background in college strength and conditioning. Talk about some of the differences between, say, the public or college sector and then the private sector owning your own business.
Sure. So we were talking about it before. I think that in the college sector, you're stuck within the guidelines of the school and the NCAA, which was, things I never even knew when I first started. I thought I could see those guys all the time, and I couldn't. They have class, they have study, They also have, I had men's basketball, so they had plenty of practices. They also had private practices with their coach where they just do like two kids, two athletes and one coach. And I used to go watch those practices, and no, those guys they were basically getting tortured. They were working hard, so I had to like really rethink what I was doing with the guys, because every guy was coming in that kind of had a different recovery level, So that was the thing. And like I said, I didn't get to see him as much. Some teams I only saw, 2 times a week. Men's basketball, because they were more kind of, a bigger program there, I saw 4 times a week. So it was so up and down between the different sports. Some teams like track and field, those kids could only come in like in the morning, and they came at different times. So I almost never really trained them. I just basically had to leave what I wanted them to do. And because I was off doing something else with another team, so I didn't get to see everyone and have such a hands-on approach. Whereas like if you have your own business in private, everyone comes through the door, you're pretty much working with them. Especially like, I have a few guys that help me, but I'm usually doing most of the training, with everyone.
Yep.
And at my facility, I have kids that come in maybe, 4 or 5 times a week, all year round. I have a couple kids that play, are really dedicated football players that I see, 3 times a week at least, all the time, year round, summer, fall, even during the season, they're coming in. So it's a big difference between kind of the private and the college sector. And then also, I think there's this idea in strength and conditioning sometimes where, like, you kind of, every coach expects you to bust all the athletes' chops. You got to get on their case and yell at them and scream at them. And obviously in our facility at Holy Cross, we had to, just because we didn't have a lot of space, so everyone had to move quick and get to where they needed to be for everything to flow the right way. Whereas my natural coaching style is a little bit more laid back.
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit more laid back. I like to tell the kids, that's why I like to start them younger. I teach them, I think if you front load the teaching onto them, you teach them everything you need to teach them. As they get older, they'll eventually take the reins and be able to not do it all themselves, but you can take a step back and watch them grow.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. I coach a couple college teams right now, and you're confined to an hour all the time. The next team's in, the weight room's packed. I was like, where did this hour time limit come from? Exactly. In the private sector and in a gym, you get all the time you need. You can take your time. You can slow roast them, slow cook them. Like you said, just a lot more freedom that coaches maybe going into college don't understand or expect, young coaches before they get in that. So how did you go from the college realm into the private sector?
Well, I got lucky. I think I think it helped me when I made the changeover. And actually, I should go back. I was already in the private sector working at another facility. And then I knew the head strength and conditioning coach, Jeff Oliver, at Holy Cross, just from seminars and talking to him and visiting him, because it's a small community. You know what I mean? I didn't live very far away from Holy Cross, so I knew him. So when the opportunity came, he called me. He said, "Hey, you interested in this?" And so I was already working at a private facility for like 4 years. And then he's like, "You want to make the jump to the college?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I got to try it. You got to try it." And so then I went. So I already kind of knew what the private sector was like, So when I made a decision to jump back into it, it wasn't super hard, because I had an idea of like, all right, well, I know when I should have to set up a schedule. I know, I've worked with that level of athlete. I kind of had a good idea, and then I could just, the only thing I changed is the things that I wanted differently, where I kind of from where I worked the last time, because the last time I wasn't the boss, I was just working for other guys. So when I had my own facility, I just set it up the way I wanted it,
Yeah. Let's go back to your youth program.
Yep.
Well, listeners, please follow Jeremy on Instagram, Twitter. He posts some great videos of your youth program. So talk about some of the goals you have with that program. What are you trying to accomplish, or for those athletes, like you said, gain from your program?
Sure. So, my main focus with the younger kids is obviously just, from a ground level, just expose them to just, movement and fun, and just to kind of instill in them, kind of lifelong love of movement and running around, things like that. And where we are, where I am, the way things are set up in the schools, the kids don't have a lot of, I mean, it's probably like this all across the country, but the kids are not getting access to enough movement during the day in school. And, they have phys ed once every 7 days. They have one 20-minute recess. When I was in school, we had 3 recesses a day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We had gym 3 times a week. You know what I mean? And then we were outside all day after school. So we had plenty of opportunities to move and to develop coordination and develop movement skills and to just be kind of all around fit. And now just children don't have access to that anymore, So I think down the road that can have lots of different effects, not only with sports, but just general health. I mean, look at obesity. I think it was like, I saw a study a few weeks ago. It was like, 50% of the population in 2026 is going to, be obese or have, some type of disease that they could have prevented just by simply moving around.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like the latest one is what this generation will be the first generation not to live longer than their parents. All those things.
Right. So, I think at the elementary school level, obviously, like I'm looking down the road for some, like my own kids, and like long-term athletic development. That's when it starts. You want to, coordination's best developed between the ages of, 4 and 12. And so I want to be able to give that to children and expose children to that. But also, if you look at the research, most kids, that struggle in school, they typically have trouble balancing on one foot, skipping, crawling on the floor with, cross crawl movement, all these things kind of, if you look at children struggling in school, their motor skills are not up to speed. We can have an immediate effect on kids. This is outside of sports and strength conditioning. We can help these kids do better in school, which obviously is huge.
Yeah, big time.
So, and I didn't even realize that stuff never dawned on me till years ago. I read this book called Smart Moves by Carla Hannaford. And she's like a neurophysiologist. And in the book, it gets really into some sciencey stuff. But she talks about this girl who was 7 in elementary school, and she was considered by the doctors that she was learning disabled, and she like dragged her foot around, like she couldn't walk the right way. And so this lady like worked with her, and she taught her how to crawl and roll and all these things. And down 2 years down the line, she's reading at above her grade level. She can skip, she can hop, she can do all those things. So there's obviously this huge physical component to learning.
Yes, yeah. So what does your typical session or your day look like in terms of that youth program, your Speed Demons class? What does it look like?
Yeah, so a couple days a week, I'll have a 4:30. I'll have the older kids in, so that's like basically third grade, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Mostly 3rd and 4th graders. My son, my oldest one, he's 9, so it's like a lot of his buddies are in there.
Yeah.
And then I coach his football team, like AYF. So we have some kids from his team. Then we get kids from like the surrounding towns because I know they're coaches, so those kids come in too. So we got a great crew of kids there. So that group, since they're a little bit older, they're a little bit more mature, we'll probably train. Like I'll do, lean, fall, run, simple speed and agility things, teach the kids how to stop and start, hip turns, things like that. We won't get too crazy. We do this thing where I call I stole it from Calvin Giles, who's at Movement Dynamics. It's called the 5 and 5. So it's basically 5 exercises you do in 5 minutes. And it's always like a push, like maybe a push-up or a plank, a lunge, a squat. And it's just basically just teaching kids basic movement skills. We do different variations of them, but it's just to start to teach them, those type of exercises, those type of movements that we would use down the road. You know what I mean? With a little bit more athletes. And then after that, it's chaos.
Yeah.
Courses, we're going to race obstacle courses. We're going to do relay races. We're going to play, dodgeball. We're going to play pickle. We call it runners and gunners. It's the next half hour or so of the class is just kind of all out. Sometimes because we're in that old school, we run in the halls. They chase each because they can, kids can't run in the hall, but in my place they can. So we'll rip up and down the halls. Just it's nuts. It's nuts. So you walk in, it's kind of crazy because those kids are running around, and you look over to your right, and you got these high school kids doing power cleans and snatches and squats, and then you got middle school kids who are on the other side of the turf, and they're like, kind of just learning what to do. They're doing goblet squats and incline push-ups because they're just trying to learn what strength training is. So you get the whole feel of right up through the years of what we're trying to accomplish when you walk in. And so after those guys leave, that class is about 50 minutes. Then we have the younger kids in. So that can be anywhere from like K through 2.
Yep.
Okay. And my son comes down. He's 3, so he'll jump in because he's just a nut. The youngest one of the clan's always crazy. So he jumps in, and that's like just there's no coaching. I just set up stuff. I'm like, go, jump over this, climb on that. Let's roll around. Let's play this game. Let's play that game. It's just 50 minutes of just go time.
Yeah. Just seeing some of the videos, just organized chaos, got bodies going everywhere, jumping on trampolines, down little slide mats. It's incredible. It looks. I want to do it. It looks fun.
Yeah, and I what's the best is that every now and then we'll be the kids will be ripping through an obstacle course, and some of the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders will come over and whisper in my ear. They're like, "Coach, can we try that?"
Yeah. Yep.
Can we go on there? And you know what? Because they're still kids at heart. They want to be doing that stuff,
Yeah.
So after the younger kids are gone, I'll be like, yeah, go, jump on, run around, have fun, So it's great. And then when I'm just about ready my head's about to burst, those guys are done, and the adults come in.
Yep.
And then it's a whole you're doing a whole 180.
Yeah.
Totally changing. And so now I'm like, we're doing mobility, we're doing core and stability, we're all that stuff that you do with the typical personal training client. So it's a quick change.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of the owner your own business or private is that throughout the whole day you get every end of the spectrum from adult, from a young, like you said, K through 2 to high school to more of an elite athlete. And like you said, every hour it's a different spice of life. You got to change your coaching. It's kind of good to have that variety.
It is good because I think if I just did kids all day or so, I'd get burnt out quickly because they suck the energy right out of you. And it's a long day too. I mean, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm up at 5 in the gym at 5:30. I got a group of adults that come in, and they're they're very type A.
Yep.
Go. They want to get their workout in before work. They want to work super hard. They don't even smile half the time. They just walk in and and I'm half asleep. I just rolled out of bed. I'm driving to work at 90 miles an hour, trying to get there on time. And so they know my personality that I'm laid back, but still they want to work. And so that's what it's a funny schedule. I have a few sessions after that, in the morning, but then things kind of die down between 11 and 2.
Yep.
So I'll go home and eat and still try to stay in some kind of decent shape.
Yeah.
Too. I'll get my own training in.
Now, next question with parents. So 2 questions with parents, okay? So the first one is, even though, like you said, those young classes, those young athletes aren't in, lifting in a sense, but obviously from the parent's perspective, they think bench press or squat with 500 pounds. How do you address those questions from parents that always say, isn't lifting going to stunt their growth? Isn't a program like this going to hurt their development? How do you address those questions? Or do you receive those questions still?
Yeah, I still get it. And you know what I say a lot? The first thing I say is there's a difference between strength training and, weight training. So I try to tell them, we can do strength training by just using our own body weight. We can just do lunges and bear crawls and stepping up on a box and things like that. The other thing I tell them is, when your son or daughter goes and plays in their soccer game this past weekend, every time they stop, change direction, bump into each other, they're producing way more force on their body than I could ever do in a weight room.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of explain that to them more, but I think eventually they get it. And especially the strength training part, the difference between strength training and weight training. I try to show them that this is what we're doing. But the other thing is when you have other kids in the program, and the parents walk in and see those kids doing it, and they know that they're around the same age as their kid, they're like, oh, it's not that bad. And now I know what you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah. Second question with parents, and again with the youth age. I don't know if you run into this, but for me a little bit, you'll get youth kids and you'll have the 5th, 6th, 4th grade kid, and their mom or dad is thinking they're an elite athlete or wants some serious training. And then you look at what we're doing, kind of like us, because like you, or it's chaos. It's organized fun. They're playing games. It looks like just like games. Do you ever see problems with parents saying, well, I want a little bit more serious training, or, anything with that where they want a little bit more rather than what we know is best for the kid? Let them enjoy the movement. Let them enjoy the process, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've had it happen before. I've even probably lost kids because I wasn't, serious enough training the young athlete, because they play at a so-called elite, level of hockey or soccer or whatever it is. There was a small period of time where I was a head of a hockey organization just down the road from here, and some of the coaches and parents were telling me like, well, why are you playing dodgeball with these guys, or why are you playing tag? And I was like, well, that's the best type of speed and agility you could ever do with them, And they were like, well, they should be doing more serious training. And I was like, it's not anymore. There's nothing more serious that beats for a fourth grader than a game of tag.
Yeah.
They're like dead serious when they're playing. And kids cry after they get done if they lose. So that's some serious stuff. You should come in and watch.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and it's the greatest type of speed and agility and change of direction work you could ever do. So, but that hockey, I don't know what it is, but that organization, that group, they were nuts about it. And I eventually said, hey, I'm getting pulled in 2 different directions. I can't stay here. So I kind of replaced myself with someone else that I knew that was a little bit more into hockey.
Yep.
But yeah, I get that all the time, but I won't budge. I kind of have a feeling. I know, even if a kid's super serious about it, you get a kid in a game that he hasn't never played before, or with a group of kids that are doing the things I want him to do, and he's sucked in right away, and he realizes it too. So
yeah.
I've even had kids come up, that hockey organization too, the other side of it. A kid say to me, I love coming in here. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, no one yells at us up here. No one else. You get kind of like, we got free reign. We can move around. Whereas in practice, we're always doing drills. We're always doing this. We're always it's always the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So I try to get a feel for kids like that, because some kids, it's just, they have no choice. Their parents are into it, and their kids might be into it too. But I think they're kids, and every now and then they're going to not want to do serious training all the time,
Yeah. Yeah. You have to understand, like you said, they're kids, and oftentimes when they're underneath or away from that microscope from their parent or coaches, and you let them have fun, they just open up, and you just see the kind of the true realization or potential the athlete has. Absolutely. It's powerful stuff. Now, a lot of, I think, coaches or young kids now these days, they want to get into owning a gym, kind of like yourself. So what's some advice you'd give to an aspiring person to open a gym or a sports performance facility such as yours?
What I would say, here's what a friend of mine, he's a D-line coach at Assumption College, and he came to me one day and he said, the 3 hardest things for a guy, most stressful things for a guy is to open your own business, have a baby, and buy a house. And he's like, you did all 3 at the same time. He's like, you're the craziest person I've ever met. Like, you know what? I did. I didn't even realize, we had a baby. We were having our second baby. We just moved into a new house, and I freaking started my own business. I don't even know how I did it. But, the things, I'm probably the worst businessman. So I think if you are going to start a business, get someone to help you on that side of things, especially right from the beginning. so you don't get bogged down and behind, and someone to kind of keep you in check. So I remember when I first, I got a loan, and I'm like, I get all this money, I can buy this and that, and then before I knew it, I'd spend it all, and I should have used it to buy other things, but I was so excited to buy kettlebells and medicine balls and bars and weights, and I just went crazy. So and as far as just being able to coach, I think prior to opening a place, you better be able to coach all different types of personalities, all different. And if it's sports performance you're into, you better be prepared to coach not only all different sports, but all different levels of that sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So but it's tough because I even think now, like when I opened mine 6 years ago, at the time I'm like, oh, I know everything. I can train anyone. And I think back now and I'm like, man, I didn't know anything. I've changed so much in those 6 years. Probably simplified things more and more.
Yeah. So. Now, what are some things, if you think about some things that before you opened the business, and you had some experience obviously in the private sector beforehand, but some things that kind of popped up before owning a business that you never kind of knew about? I tell people this all the time, like, yeah, it sounds cool to own a gym or be an entrepreneur, but guess what? If the toilet gets clogged, I'm the one unclogging it. Some of those small things that you don't realize in the grander scheme of things, those little jobs that fall on your shoulders. What are some things that you've noticed?
Yeah, like the kid who came in one day and had a stomach bug and threw up all over the turf. Like that was me. That I had to clean that up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then I got sick the next day myself. So it's like I thought that I didn't realize how hot the gym was going to be, and so I had to go out and buy, spend a lot of money on some air conditioners and fans, and like none of that stuff even came into my mind.
Yeah,
I was budgeting out what we needed. But you need it, and you need it. Not only do you need it now.
Yes.
You got to go get that stuff. So I'm, in between sessions or Sunday or whatever, I'm running out and buying stuff and getting stuff. And so, it's there's always something that pops up, and it's I think after a couple of years you get used to it. You just kind of expect it, or you get you get organized enough where kind of things start to flow. But there's always something. Always something.
There's always something every day, every week. I think about every week, just towels, just doing luckily my wife does most of that, but like 4 or 5 loads of towels every week. And cups, yep. we don't have a drinking fountain, so we have like a faucet and we have cups. So like every week running the store and getting 150 cups that we have to continually replace every week in and week out. Just those small things are crazy.
I always forget chalk, chalk. Because, everyone uses kettlebells and just forget chalk. And it's like, I'll go buy a bunch and then I'll forget to check, the bucket and see it and it's gone. And everyone's complaining they got no chalk. And I'm like, half of me just wants to be like, suck it up.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever. So then I got to go run out and buy chalk. So it's fun though. I wouldn't have it any other way, really. I'm so into it now that and it's great to, like, right before I talked to you, I had my 2 youngest down there with their cousins, and they ripped around for 2 hours. It was just free play. So they're probably wiped, which is great because I can bring my kids down there to run around and just play. And especially when it's cold out or it's snowing out and we can't get outside or whatever, I can just bring that. Or if they're driving my wife crazy, I can like, hey, get in the car. We're going to the gym. Let's go rip around. Call some of their buddies. We'll throw some mats down. They've had 5-on-5 football games down there on wrestling mats. And I just sat there for hours and watched. It's great. So it's been really great for the family to be able to. Obviously my wife gets to go work out too. So it's kind of a family affair. Obviously she's smarter than me. She's more organized than me. So she keeps me in line as far as everything goes. So it's great having her as well.
Yeah, a gym is the ultimate playground for little kids. They just they can occupy themselves for 2 hours. Just let them loose, and they'll find something to do.
You know what? I always call the schools, like all the local elementary schools from all the towns. I'm like, if you guys throw away mats, you're going to get rid of anything. Before you do, call me. I will drive up there in a second and take it. So I've gotten mats from different schools, gymnastic stuff. I have balance beam. I have an old pommel horse that they were trying to get rid of. I'm like, I'll take it. I don't care. So I try to get as much. Most of the stuff I get, I've collected. I didn't even have to buy it. So, but you can just be a little bit creative with it, and you can come up with some awesome stuff that kids can play with.
Yeah. So what say if you look at kind of your whole business as a whole, or your program for your youth and high school or adults, what's something this year that you're doing differently than you've done in years past?
You know what? That Speed Demons program was the program. I kind of just came up with it in the back of my head one day. I was like, that sounds like something cool that the kids would like, And so that was in the summer. I was just thinking, I usually don't even market the youth programs until like November, until all the youth sports finish, like soccer and football and all that. And I'm usually coaching youth football up until that time. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to start this Speed Demons thing. Last year I called it like for years I had this. It was called just like Athletic Fundamentals, and I had kids that joined, but it was not as big as the Speed Demons. But this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to call it Speed Demons. I'm going to make like a sweet logo. So I made this awesome logo. This girl down my gym made for me, and it just looked awesome. And so it was just, I think then I marketed it in September to everybody. And so I got lucky too, because I also run a flag football league for kids this is the first year we did it. So we got like 200 kids in the league. So I was able to get the word out to them about Speed Demons. So that's helped out a lot too. So there's a lot of different things I've probably added more programs. And so that's why Speed Demons has kind of grown this year so much,
Yeah. On that marketing kind of advertising kind of branch, what do you do as coming from the private sector? What do you do as terms of marketing and advertising for your business or for your programs?
You know what? I think it's still word of mouth is still a big part of it. I don't, nothing in the newspaper. I think social media is where you get it, where people see it. So, a lot of people in town are friends with me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or Twitter. And then you put it on there and people share it and see it. And I think people really like too, if you show, their children training.
Yeah.
Like that. And so they share it and their friends see it. And so that's kind of how the word spreads. It's really not difficult. I think Facebook and the social media is amazing when it comes to that type of thing.
Yeah.
If you live in a small community as well.
Yep. Yeah. I talk to college kids talk to college programs all the time, and they go, "What do you do for marketing and advertising?" And it's like social media, word of mouth, free. I think I've done one newspaper ad and it was a total flop. I'm like, I'm never doing anything like that again.
Never. Yep. I will never do newspaper ever again, because that's how, same thing. It never worked. No one ever saw it. And they call me all the time. Like, nope, sorry.
Yeah. You can get all you want on Facebook, Instagram, and then telling kids, that word of mouth. Yeah. So a topic you wanted to bring up here. So you and I are both former Division III athletes.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is the biggest misconception about D3 athletes or athletics in general?
You know what? I think it's funny. I think that to people who never played college sports, they think if you play D3, you think like you're not that good. You're not going to, like, there's not any good athletes in Division III. It drives me nuts. Because I played with some amazing athletes, and for whatever reason, not everyone makes it to Division II or Division I. There's lots of reasons why. And it's not just because you're not athletic enough. I know guys that grew. I knew a guy. He was 170 pounds. He was 18. By the time he was 22, he was like 225, and he was an All-American at a Division III school. It's just he's a late bloomer.
Yeah.
So there's so many different reasons. I'm not saying that everyone in D3 is as good as Division I kids. That's obviously not it. But there's definitely there's definitely good athletes there, and it's definitely worth watching. I loved it. I loved every minute of it, playing Division III football.
Yeah. Like I said, so many things floating around my head, and it seems like the people that always say, we only played Division III, college, and then go, did you play college sports?
Right.
No. Why not?
Right.
Like, don't be bashful. You didn't play it at all, And we had guys every year I was in college. I think we had Division I transfers come in from
Yep.
Tennessee, Virginia Tech. We had guys from Iowa. They'd transfer in, and they'd be just a regular guy, like just a normal starter. Nothing that would stand out. Like I said, I think the gap is smaller than many people believe between D2, D3, D1, D3 than the general conception. Yeah.
Because I went to Worcester State, and Holy Cross is in Worcester. So, we would get together with some of those guys sometimes and do speed work and do things with them and work out with them. And when I was there, I didn't feel like they were head and shoulders more athletic than I was. What I did notice is that there's probably more of them.
Yeah.
If we had, two or three wide receivers, they had 7 or 8 that were athletic and fast. You know what I mean? And maybe, their line was significantly bigger than ours. I think D3, that's where you see, like, as far as football goes, that's where I saw the biggest difference between is like our line was like short, fat guys.
Yeah.
Whereas like Holy Cross's line was like these tall, big. These kids were all like at least over 6'2", 6'3", where our guys were just like little fat guys.
Yeah.
And not that they weren't good athletes, because those guys were too, but they weren't tall. They was that prototypical kind of big lineman that you see at the higher levels. You know? So,
I mean, the other thing that bothers is that, I don't know about your program, but our programs, we put in a lot of time, like a lot of film study, a lot of meetings, a lot of weight room. Yeah, it was like you said, during season, it's a full-time job, just as like a D1. We're doing all those same things.
Yep.
Without the scholarship.
Yeah. So my roommate from college, he's the head strength coach at Delaware now for football.
Yep.
Donnell Boucher, he's at the Citadel.
Yep.
He went to school with me, and so I can remember being with those guys, and we didn't have like this indoor facility. So I remember one night we were running we're doing remember the overspeed, the bungee sprint, that was big. Yep. When I was playing, that was it. You did overspeed, that was the thing. So we're doing bungees in a hallway of the administration building while there's night school going on. That's D3. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
These other schools, they got these indoor fields, they got this and that. We're running in the hallways of our school, but we're doing the same stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're dodging people coming out of class because we're ripping down the hallway with bungees attached to each other. And people are looking at us like, what are these guys doing?
Yeah.
I wouldn't change any of that, because I just think back and I feel like you learn so much and you realize that you don't need all those fancy bells and whistles to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I walked through a D1 weight room now today, and I'm like, those kids, when they're done with lifting or in between classes, they come to the weight room and they got all the food they could ever dream of.
Crazy.
They got all the apparel. Everything. You got a tutor at your hand. Here we were. We're scraping by trying to get a protein shake at, on our own time, on our own money, that kind of stuff. It's a different world, but yeah, like you said, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, it's great. It was good. We had my senior year, this guy came in. He had coached at Harvard for years, so then he went to Worcester State, which is Harvard and Worcester State are light years apart as far as academics. You know what I mean? And when he brought the spread with him, and he put it in, and it was for me, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. We had like I said. So speaking of good athletes, our quarterback could throw 90 in baseball. He was a stud baseball player. So it's for whatever reason, it didn't work out with him. So he ended up at Worcester State playing both. He got to play both sports.
Yep. Yeah.
So we would just go out and just swing the ball around.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Friggin' awesome.
Yeah, it was good times, wasn't it? Like you said, definitely helped I think both of us to where we are today. That experience.
I agree, absolutely.
So, give us 3 books to kind of change your perspective or influence you in the world of coaching or just in life in general.
3 books, yeah. So that book, I think we talked about it. Did I mention it earlier? Is it Smart Moves?
Smart Moves, yep.
That's one of them. What's the other one? Oh, you know what? As far as strength training goes, there's a book called Dinosaur Training by this guy named Brooks Kubik. And I was in a store. I was in a supplement. So I was at a Vitamin Shop or Vitamin World or one of these places trying to buy a, cheap protein when I was in school,
Yeah.
And so I went through a magazine and I saw this advertisement for this book that just came out. This is like 1998, I think. So I mail ordered it. You couldn't even order things online at that time. So I saw this advertisement for this book, Dinosaur Training, and it was like basically like if you're into bare bones lifting, like you want to lift, be big and strong like they used to years ago, like buy this book. And I bought it and I read it like cover to cover in like 3 days. And then I read it again and it was like, and it really is. It's just, it talks about heavy squatting and deadlifting and eating lots of food. And it's just so basic, but it really like talks about abbreviated training programs and just what you need, just those bare bone exercises. And it was really, I still read it even today. I still pick it up and we'll go through it because the way the guy writes, he didn't write like a scientist. He didn't write it like a coach. He wrote it like some guy who lifts a lot in his basement.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's called Dinosaur Training.
Dinosaur Training. The name of the author, his name is Brooks Kubik.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I tried to read Super Training many times, but it's like my head spins. I usually want to fall asleep after I read that one page.
Yeah.
So I like to tell everyone I read it, but I never really.
Trying to tackle that book is like, oh, geez.
The worst. What I love is Easy Strength. Definitely was a great book. It's kind of scatterbrained, it's kind of all over the place because they go back and forth, like Pavel and Dan John talking. But
yep.
I think the points that they make in the book are great and easy to implement, especially if you train a wide range of people.
Yep. Good.
I'm trying to think what else. I almost forgot. Sorry. It's by Joe Drabick, Children in Sports Training. And that's kind of like the foundation book. If you train kids, if you work with like really young kids and try to develop coordination and movement skill, it's kind of like the book. Because it gives you even the scientific background and the scientific basis of why you want to do these things in certain time periods. So that's a really good book, and it's a translated text. So it used to be in Polish, and then someone publishes it here in the United States. You could probably get it on Amazon, but when I bought it, it was tough to get. But it's Children in Sports Training. It's a good one. It's the same group of guys that wrote The Science of Sports Training.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
So but great book, especially if you're going to read any part of that book, read the section on coordination, because it really breaks down what coordination is and how to develop it and what ages to develop different parts of coordination. It's pretty intense.
And like you said, your kids are in all your programs. I was talking to another coach last week at the clinic, and he's just had a baby, and he's about 6 months or 7 months old. He's like, I'm going through these children's books and looking at all the developmental signs of rolling, crawling, trying to like push his daughter to like reach these milestones. It's kind of like a self-experiment with your own kids.
It really is. For me, it's been a huge experiment. And my oldest, I remember going to the doctor one day and before I even knew any of this stuff, and her telling me like, if he doesn't start moving and hit these milestones soon, like you're gonna have to take him to like a movement specialist. Or I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then I really started reading stuff and learn that, and then ever since then, it's been he basically followed me to the gym for 9 years. I mean, I carried him in the baby thing, and then he could walk and he would come with me. I mean, he's been there. So I think as a kid, you're just exposed to it all the time. Like he was doing like rudimentary cleans and front squats at like age 5. Like just because he stands there and watches these kids do it, and so as a young kid, you just copy. And I don't I don't tell everyone to go, hey, get your kid to do cleans. He just was there, so he does it, you know. And so it's kind of funny to watch the difference too between like, because he's been so coached, he's always around it compared to my second one. So the oldest one's like very like robotic the way he moves because he's been coached like since he's been like this little guy, right? So he moves like when he skips, he's like got this like super technique and all the things he does. And then my other guy is like very laid back, and so he's just like real smooth and rhythmic.
Yep.
So like he kind of just like flows when he moves. It's like it's different. You can if you watch him, and it goes along with their personalities. Like my oldest is he's very anxious and very, like he needs everything to be the way he wants.
Yep.
So really, and the other guy, and that's how he moves. And then the other guy, it's like he's real smooth and laid back and like calm, and he like kind of moves that way when he runs. It's like he can move well. It's almost like he's lazy, but he's not. He's just kind of flowing. You know?
Yep.
Weird. And then I got a daughter, and she's just like kind of, she's very athletic, but she's usually too scared to do anything because the boys are always up, driving her crazy.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
So it's great. It's, now you probably saw, I don't know if you saw that video of my youngest one jumping over I put it on Instagram the other day, like he's jumping over hurdles and just taking spills. Like,
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
He's the madman. He's at it. I can't wait to see what he turns out to be like,
Yeah. My dad was a college football coach, and just like you said, just seeing and mirroring what older athletes are doing. I mean, it's an awesome environment to grow up in. Just
how often were you around them?
Oh, all the time. I was all the practices, every game on the sidelines. I'd ride the buses. I just grew up like in a college locker room, but you're watching practice, just enamored with guys. And I was a receiver, so I'd watch the receivers and see their techniques, and then I'd be on the side trying it myself and stuff. Yeah.
How do you not? That's what I was saying. Like, how do you not develop into what you developed? Like, you had no other choice. Like, there's no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you had to. That's the way you had to go.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So.
Interesting question here. Okay, you're able to take 3 people to dinner. Any 3 people, dead or alive. Name 3 people you'd like to take to dinner. Anybody in the existence of mankind.
So number 1 would be definitely. I got into for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I got into like the Civil War kick like 10 years ago, and I've read and I stopped reading anything with regards to strength and conditioning. And for like an entire year, all I read was Civil War books.
Okay.
No idea why, but I like rifled through. There was like this book. This guy wrote there's a 3-volume series called The Civil War, and it was like 1,200 pages. And I just ripped through it. I was just like fascinated by the whole situation, and I don't know why. So the guy in that whole time period would be Abe Lincoln and everything he did. So he'd be definitely my number 1. Number 2 would probably be Mel Sith.
Yep.
I remember just coming, obviously we just talked about super training, but years ago when I first got on the internet, he had like this super training group where people would basically email in and ask him questions, and he would talk about all different types of topics in regards to strength and conditioning. And some of it is so over my head that I could never understand it. But some of it, he made it so simple and so easy to understand. And so I always found that guy really fascinating. And it stinks that he passed away, because I think he would have had an even bigger, especially now, as much as strength and conditioning has exploded.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what he has to say about CrossFit and things like that. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. I want to know what happened to that group. That was like Yahoo Super Train group. Like, you can't find anymore. That was gold.
It was awesome. It was awesome. So it was like, I would love to see what he would say about the things going on now.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and I think the last guy who was probably a big influence on me, just because I was into track and field, would probably be Charlie Francis. So I think when I was in school, I read his book. I think it was Training for Speed, and I don't claim to know in-depth knowledge of how it programs. I know there's a lot of guys that know a lot about it, but for me, it was just like a simple idea of really hard training, heavy training, like CNS intensive training, on one day, then the next day you kind of go and ease back and do less intensive training, kind of alternate those days. And that had a huge impact on me, as far as my own training when I would go to the gym and I would try to do all those things. I would do all my jumps and all my lifts and my sprints on one day, and then the next day do circuits and tempo runs and things. And it was the results I felt like I did great.
Yeah, that'd be a good dinner with those three guys.
Yeah, right. So
that'd be something. Perfect. Last one. Where can get people find you? The listeners find you on social media, or where can they reach you?
Yeah, so just my own Facebook page, just Jeremy Frisch. You can find me on there. I usually post everything I post on my Instagram. I usually post on my Facebook page as well. And then I think we first connected on Instagram, which I think is great because you get to see. I think it's a great learning tool. You get to see what other coaches are doing, and go back and forth, talk about things. And so Instagram, I did it under T performance training.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's under my company name. So that's probably on Twitter under my company name as well as Jeremy Frisch. So I gotta get on that Twitter more. That's the one I haven't been on that as much.
Yeah. Like you said, I think we connected through Instagram. I just, like I said, saw what you're doing for the youth athletes, and that thing, I thought it was awesome. So much fun. Well, yeah. I steal your ideas, and I throw them with our young kids, and they love it.
It's same with me too. Like, I go in there and I watch all the videos and go back, and I just think for us, we have similar ideas and what we're doing as far as training athletes. So it's great to have someone to bounce. Just to see other ideas and things that other people are doing.
Yeah. Like I remember 2 months ago when I saw you had the mini trampolines out. That night I ordered 2 mini trampolines, and my kids were like, can we get the trampolines out? Every day. Can we get the trampolines out? It's like, okay, let's go. They love the trampolines.
It's great. It's really good. There's a book, I'll send it to you. I have it on PDF. This guy, Paul Urim, he wrote this book called Refining Human Movement, maybe. It's like it was written in like 1965.
Yep.
You can't get it anywhere. But the book, like the first, basically, he's like this gymnastics coach, and the first chapter of the book, he just talks about how important it is to move, and how as a society we don't move enough anymore. And this is like 1965. This is before everything that's going on now. And then the last part of the book, he talks about, he shows you all these different exercises you can do and different movements. And he has this whole section on mini tramp training.
Yep.
And bouncing off and spinning and jumping and doing 180s and 360s and landing on the floor and rolling. And I was like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
As luck would have it, a friend of mine, I was talking to him about it one day, and his mom was a phys ed teacher. He was like, dude, my mom's got 5 trampolines in her garage. You want them? I was like, go get them now.
Yeah.
Go get them. And ever since that day, we pretty much use them every day. I even use them with the some of the older middle school kids to teach them how to land. So they'll bounce off, they'll do a jump off the tramp and work on different types of landings. And they love it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great tool. When I saw that, I'm like, I need that. And yeah, the kids just beg for it to bounce off and jump over like a hurdle, and then, like you said, land and roll, land and do a bear crawl or anything.
I'm gonna email you that PDF because you'll eat that book up. You'll love it.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, hey, I appreciate your time. A lot of great info we shared today. I appreciate your openness and all the work you do for young athletes over there in Massachusetts.
Great. Thanks so much.
Please join me in thanking Jeremy today and sharing with us all his insight and knowledge when it comes to owning a business and youth training. I can honestly say this is one of my favorite talks and podcasts we've done so far. And I encourage all of you listeners to go out and follow Jeremy and Achieve Performance on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and see firsthand some of the training, some of the fun things he's doing with his youth athletes. It is really incredible, and I think his program is at the forefront of one of the best youth development programs I have seen. And I try to steal and take things away from what he's doing with our youth programs because I think it's incredible opportunity, and those young kids are getting exposed to so many great movements and games and fun variations that they make them enjoy the training and then fall in love with the process of training and fitness and movement and all those type of things. So please join me in thanking Jeremy. Please give him a follow on all those social media platforms. And as always, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please give us a share or a tweet or wherever it may be on any social media outlet of your choice. And as always, we'll see you on the other side with our next episode of the Elite Performance Podcast.